Hey, I'm Emma. Welcome to Emma's Betrayal Stories now. Before we start, go grab a snack and get comfortable for a bit. These stories aren't rushed. They're the kind you sit with. Today's story comes with an update and my own personal opinions throughout the story. Let me know in the comments if you agree or see it differently. Let's begin. After my family laughed at my business, I built an empire that made them take notice. My mother's fingers were already wrapped around the microphone when I reached the edge of the stage. The ballroom lights made everything feel unreal, too bright, too glossy, like I was watching my own life through a screen. I could hear the polite applause swelling again because she'd smiled at the crowd, that warm practice smile she uses when she wants people to think we're close. My name was still glowing on the giant screen behind her in clean white letters, and the award, heavy, cold metal, was pressed into my palm so tightly it left a crescent mark. Maya's always been a dreamer, she was saying, voice lilting. And of course, none of this would have happened without her family supporting her from day one. I felt my stomach drop like I'd missed a step on stairs. My skin went hot, then cold. The air smelled like champagne and those tiny waxy candles they put on banquet tables. I could see my brother Sam at table 12, grinning into his drink like this was a show. I could see my father looking down at his napkin, lips tight, like he was bracing for impact. I didn't think. I moved. I stepped up, close enough that my mother's perfume hit me, rose and something sharp underneath, and I put my hand over hers on the microphone. She jolted, eyes flashing sideways at me, still smiling at the audience like we were sharing a sweet moment. "Mom," I whispered, but it came out rough, not sweet. My heart was banging so hard my vision pulsed at the edges. She leaned in like she was going to kiss my cheek and hissed, "Don't embarrass me." My jaw clenched. I could feel the satin of my dress tug at my shoulders as I shifted. "You're embarrassing yourself," I whispered back, and then I gently but firmly pulled the microphone toward me. Her smile wavered. The crowd's clapping died into that awkward hush where everyone pretends they're not listening, but they absolutely are. My mother's hand stayed on the mic for a second too long, like she was testing whether I'd let her keep it. I didn't. It was a Tuesday night when I told them I was quitting my job to start my meal prep thing, and I still remember the exact way my father laughed. Not a chuckle, not a polite little, "Oh wow," but a full-bodied laugh like I'd told the funniest joke he'd heard all month. We were at my parents' dining table, the one with the glass top that always felt slightly sticky no matter how many times my mom wiped it down. Sam was there because he still lived at home at 28 and acted like that was a temporary inconvenience imposed by the economy, not the result of him quitting every job after 3 weeks. My Aunt Nura had dropped by unannounced, which is how things always happen in our family. No privacy, no planning, just people entering your life like they own the place. I'd brought a folder. I'd done numbers. I'd made samples and packed them in neat containers like proof I wasn't being impulsive. I set them on the table and said, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to start Portion and Company. Full-time. I have clients lined up. I'm ready." My mother stared at the containers like they were suspicious. "You're leaving a stable job," she said, tone already loaded with disappointment. "For cooking?" "It's not just cooking," I said. "It's a subscription model. Weekly deliveries. App ordering. Gym partnerships. Corporate lunches. I've been testing it for months." Sam picked up a container, shook it slightly, and smirked. "So you're doing Tupperware now," he said. He popped it open and sniffed like he was inspecting meat at a market. "This is what you quit for?" My father leaned back in his chair, hands on his stomach, and laughed again. "Maya," he said, like he was being gentle, "you have a degree. You're smart. Don't throw your life away to sell rice." The heat in my face that night felt like humiliation, but it was also anger. I remember gripping my fork so hard my knuckles went pale. "It's not selling rice," I said. "It's building something. It's mine." My Aunt Nura made a sympathetic noise like she'd already decided I'd fail. "Sweetheart," she said, "everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. It's a trend. But you need a husband, not stress." My mother nodded like that was wisdom. "You know what people will say," she added. They'll say we raised you to be this. I wanted to stand up and scream. Instead, I did what I always did in that house. I swallowed the sharp thing inside me and tried to sound reasonable. I'm not asking for permission, I said. I'm telling you. My father's laughter stopped. His face hardened. Then don't come crying when it doesn't work, he said. Sam raised his glass like he was toasting my failure. To rice, he said, and my aunt laughed. My mother sighed like I'd broken her heart. Nobody tasted the samples. Not one bite. They just sat there on the table, lids fogging slightly as they cooled, like tiny sealed versions of my hope. That was 3 years ago. Back then, Portion and Company was me and a rented commercial kitchen that smelled like onions no matter what I cooked. It was waking up at 4:30 a.m. to roast trays of chicken while my eyes burned from lack of sleep. It was labeling containers with shaking hands because caffeine made me jittery, then loading them into the trunk of my car and praying the air con didn't die. It was delivering to strangers in gym parking lots while they stared at me like I was a vending machine that had developed feelings. It was answering angry emails at midnight because someone's sauce leaked in transit. It was spreadsheets and burnt fingertips and phone calls with suppliers who talked over me because my voice was soft and I looked young. But it was also the first time in my life I could feel something growing because I was watering it, not because someone else approved of it. My first real break came from a place I never expected, a small CrossFit gym called Iron Harbor. I'd been delivering to one of their coaches, a woman named Jess, who always tipped me $2 and never complained. One morning she waved me inside, pointed at the chalkboard wall where they wrote WOD, and said, "You should put your menu here. People keep asking me what I'm eating." I laughed because it felt too simple to matter. "Sure," I said, and I taped a printed menu to the wall with blue painter's tape. By the end of that week, I had 20 new orders. By the end of the month, I had 50. People started DMing me about macros, asking if I could do gluten-free, if I could do halal, if I could do vegetarian. I said yes to everything, and then went home and cried in my kitchen because I didn't know how to do it all, and I was terrified of messing up. Then I got up the next morning and did it anyway. I hired my first employee 6 months later. Her name was Lean. She was older than me, fast, blunt, and she didn't treat my business like a cute hobby. The first day she watched me fuss over a sauce and said, "Stop babying it. You're not making food for your family. You're running a company." That sentence hit me in the chest. A company. I rolled it around in my mind like a new word. Within a year, I had 2 kitchens. Then 3. Then a delivery van with our logo on the side. Simple, clean, white and green. The first time I saw it driving down the street, my throat tightened like I was about to cry, but I forced myself not to. I told myself I'd cry later, in private, like I always had. Except I didn't. I just stood there on the sidewalk and watched it go, feeling something unfamiliar settle in me. Pride, maybe. Or relief. My family didn't notice any of it. Or they noticed and treated it like background noise. When I'd show up to Sunday lunch exhausted, my mother would say, "You look tired. This is why women shouldn't chase money." When I'd mention a new corporate contract, my father would say, "That's nice," in the tone you use when a child shows you a drawing. Sam would ask, "So when are you getting a real job?" and then laugh like it was hilarious every time. My Aunt Nura would ask if I'd finally learned my lesson yet, and if I wanted her friend's son's number. And I kept going anyway, partly because I wanted to succeed, and partly because I couldn't handle the thought of them being right. Then, 2 months ago, Portion and Company hit a milestone that still doesn't feel real when I say it out loud. We signed a national partnership with a chain of wellness clinics, and our subscriber count tripled in 8 weeks. We went from busy to we need systems or we die. I brought in an operations manager. I hired a finance person because my accountant started looking at my books like they were a horror movie. We moved into a bigger headquarters. Open plan, bright, plants that Lean insists we keep alive because dead plants are bad for morale. We started a scholarship program for young women who wanted to study nutrition and didn't have family support because I know exactly what it feels like to be laughed at when you're trying to build something. And that's when my family suddenly discovered I existed. It started small. My mom texted me a heart emoji-free congratulations when a local business magazine featured me on their cover. I stared at the message for a full minute because it felt like getting a postcard from someone who lives in your house. My father called and said he was proud, which sounded like he'd swallowed the word with water to get it down. Sam started sending me memes about boss babes like he was flirting with the concept of respecting me. Then the requests came. My mom needed help with a small loan because my dad's business had slowed down. My dad wanted me to talk to a friend about a contract. Sam wanted a job, but not entry-level because I'm your brother. Aunt Noura suddenly wanted me to cater her daughter's engagement party for exposure. Exposure. Like my business was a teenage band. The real turning point was last month when my parents hosted a family dinner and invited half the extended family, then surprised me by introducing me like I was a trophy. "This is our Maya," my mother said, hand on my shoulder, nails digging slightly into my skin. We always knew she'd do something big. Always knew. I felt my mouth go dry. I looked around the table and saw faces I hadn't seen in years nodding like they'd been cheering me on this whole time. My father smiled too widely. Sam squeezed my shoulder like he was proud of me, which would have meant more if he hadn't spent 3 years calling my work rice.
I should have corrected them then.
I should have said, "Actually, you laughed." I should have said, "Actually, you told me not to come crying." But I didn't, because the room was warm and loud, and I could feel my mother's grip on me like a warning. And part of me, the part that still wants to be loved by the people who raised me, wanted to believe maybe they'd changed. Then my mother announced, in front of everyone, that she and my father would be helping me expand. I laughed, confused. What? My father clinked his glass. "We've been discussing it," he said, looking around like he was making a business presentation. "With your success, it makes sense to keep it in the family. We can invest."
Guide you.
My mother nodded. "Your father has experience. And Sam has ideas."
Sam grinned.
"I've been telling her to scale," he said, like he'd invented my company. My throat tightened. "I didn't ask for investors," I said carefully. My mom's smile stiffened. "Maya," she said through her teeth, still smiling for the room, "don't be ungrateful." That night I went home and sat on my couch in the dark, still wearing my coat, and I realized something that made my chest ache. They weren't proud of me. They were proud of the fact that my success reflected on them now. They wanted to wear me like a nice outfit to a party. And apparently they'd already made plans. 2 days later, Lean called me into her office and shut the door. She didn't sit down, which is how I knew it was serious. She held up her phone. "Your brother has been emailing our suppliers," she said. I blinked. "What?" She swiped and showed me. The email was from Samuel, last name, with a signature that said Business Development, Portion and Company. He'd attached a proposal for a spin-off brand, Portion Light. Same fonts, same colors, same tagline. He was negotiating pricing like he had authority. My stomach went hollow. My hands went cold. "He can't do that," I said, but it sounded like a question. "He's already doing it," Lean replied. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. "He also tried to schedule a meeting with the clinics. He told them he was your partner." I could hear blood rushing in my ears. I started, then stopped because the obvious hit me like a slap. He had access because my mother had given him my old family laptop password years ago. The one I used before I got smart about security. The one tied to my early vendor list. The one I forgot existed because I didn't think my own family would weaponize it. I drove to my parents' house that night with my jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. I could taste copper in my mouth like I'd bitten my tongue. My mom opened the door and smiled like she'd been expecting me. "Hi, Habibti," she said, sweet. "We were just talking about you." Sam was on the couch, laptop open, feet on the coffee table like he owned the place. He looked up and grinned. "Perfect timing," he said. "I've got something to show you." I stood in the doorway, my coat still on, my keys still in my hand. "You're emailing my suppliers," I said flatly.
Sam shrugged.
I'm building value, he said, like he'd watched one business podcast and decided he was an executive. My father stepped in from the dining room, wiping his hands on a towel. Don't be dramatic, he said immediately, like my anger was a tantrum. We're family. My mother's smile thinned. This is why you struggle, she said softly. You don't know how to share. My vision sharpened. Share? I repeated. My voice shook. You laughed at me. You told me not to come crying. You called my business a joke. And now you're using my name to negotiate with my suppliers and calling it sharing? Sam leaned forward, elbows on knees. You're acting like you did this alone, he said, eyes glittering with that nasty familiar arrogance. You wouldn't be here without us pushing you. I stared at him. I actually stared, like I was trying to see if there was any trace of the kid I used to share cereal with. You didn't push me, I said quietly. You tried to shame me into quitting. My father's face tightened.
Watch your tone, he snapped.
I took a breath that felt like it scraped my lungs. Stop using my company name, I said.
Right now.
Or I'm getting a lawyer. My mother gasped like I'd threatened to burn the house down. A lawyer, she repeated, scandalized. Over family? My hands clenched around my keys until they dug into my palm. Yes, I said. Over family. Because you're stealing.
Sam licked.
You can't steal what's in the family, he said. That's where I'm going to stop because what happened next is the part that blew everything up in a way I didn't expect, and I need to explain it properly. But I also know exactly how this sounds. Successful daughter, greedy family, dramatic threats. I can already hear people saying, just cut them off. I wish it felt that simple. Right now, if I'm being honest, I'm furious in a way that makes me feel almost embarrassed, like anger is a bad emotion I'm not allowed to have because I'm supposed to be the calm, responsible one. But anger is the only thing keeping me from folding like I always do. My family didn't just doubt me. They mocked me when I was vulnerable, when I was taking a real risk, when I needed encouragement. And the second the risk paid off, they rewrote history in real time like they'd been my cheer squad. Sam is the easiest villain here because he's loud about it. He's entitled and lazy and convinced he deserves the benefits of work he refuses to do. He's also the kind of person who thinks confidence counts as competence. But my parents are the ones who made him. My mother's version of love is control dressed up as concern, and my father's version of authority is shutting things down so he doesn't have to examine his own mistakes. They both act like my boundaries are disrespect because in their heads, my life is still an extension of theirs. The worst part is the small part of me that still wants them to say, plainly, we were wrong. Not we always knew, not we supported you, not family shares. Just the truth. Because I think if they said it, I'd finally be able to stop arguing with myself about whether I'm being harsh. And yeah, I know the advice will be lawyer up, lock everything down, but emotionally it feels like admitting my family is capable of hurting me on purpose. That's the part I'm still swallowing. Update. Okay. A lot has happened since I typed that last line, and I'm still kind of shaky, so if this is messy, that's why. After the confrontation at my parents' house, I left before it got uglier. Not because I was done, because I could feel myself getting to that point where I'd say something I couldn't take back, and I didn't want my rage to turn into ammunition they could use against me later. I drove home with my hands trembling on the wheel, and I sat in my car in my apartment parking lot for 10 full minutes just breathing and staring at the building like it was the only stable thing in the world. That night, I did 3 things. I changed every password I could think of. I emailed my suppliers and clinics directly from my official account and said, if anyone contacts you claiming to represent Portion and Company, please confirm with me or my operations manager first.
No exceptions.
And then I called a lawyer. I didn't even feel brave. I felt sick. But I called. The lawyer, her name is Priya, was blunt in the way I needed. She asked if Portion and Company was trademarked, yes. If Sam was ever employed, no. If I'd ever granted him authority, no. And if I had documentation of his emails, yes. Thanks to Lean. Priya said, then this is straightforward. It's not family drama. It's misrepresentation and potential fraud. Hearing someone say that out loud made my stomach flip because it forced me to stop minimizing what was happening. The next morning, Priya sent a cease and desist letter to Sam and copies to my parents because their address was where he'd listed his business office. The letter was polite but firm. Stop contacting vendors, stop using the company name and branding, stop presenting himself as affiliated, or we proceed further. I thought the letter would scare them into backing off. It made them angry. My mother called me screaming. Not crying. Screaming. I've almost never heard her scream like that. How dare you? She shouted, like I'd committed a crime. You're humiliating us. I'm protecting my company, I said, and my voice was surprisingly steady. I think something in me snapped into survival mode. You're attacking your brother, she said. After everything we did for you. What did you do for me? I asked, and there was a pause, just a tiny one. Like, she didn't expect the question. Then she said, we raised you. As if raising me gave them ownership. My father got on the phone and tried a different tactic, calm, stern, disappointed. You're letting money change you, he said. I laughed once, sharp. Money didn't change me, I said. It just showed me who you are when you think I'm useful. He went quiet, then said, if you don't withdraw that letter, don't come to this house again. I hung up. My hand was shaking so badly, I had to put the phone down on the counter, like it was heavy. Then Sam did something I truly did not expect. He showed up at my office. He walked in like he belonged there, wearing a button-up shirt like he was playing businessman, and he tried to chat with a receptionist like they were co-workers. Lean spotted him from across the floor and moved so fast I almost laughed, except I wasn't in the mood. She intercepted him before he got near my office door. Sam said, loudly, tell Maya to stop being dramatic. We need to talk. Lean said, you need to leave. Sam puffed up. I'm family. Lean didn't blink. This is a workplace. I came out because I didn't want my staff dealing with my mess alone. The second Sam saw me, he spread his arms like he was greeting an old friend. There she is, he said, smiling. The CEO. I didn't smile back. Why are you here? I asked. He lowered his voice and leaned in slightly, like he wanted to make it private. You can't send lawyers after me, he said. It makes you look bad. It makes you look like what you are, I said, and my voice sounded calm in my ears, which was weird because my chest felt like it was full of buzzing wires.
Summer's smile teened.
You're really going to ruin your relationship with your family over this? He asked. You already did, I said. You used my name.
He scoffed.
I was trying to help you scale. You're too emotional to make hard decisions. You need me. That's when I realized something clean and painful. Sam genuinely believed his own narrative. He wasn't even acting. He thought he deserved a seat at my table because he shared my blood, even though he'd never lifted a finger to build what I built. I told him, leave. If you come back, we'll trespass you. He laughed like I was bluffing. So Lean called building security. Watching 2 security guards escort my brother out of my office building was one of the most surreal moments of my life. People stared. My staff pretended not to look. Sam twisted his head back over his shoulder and shouted, "You'll regret this," like a cartoon villain. And then, because life apparently wanted to pile on, my Aunt Noura posted on Facebook that I was turning my back on my family and that money reveals true character. She didn't name me, but she didn't need to. The comments were full of relatives I barely know saying things like, "So sad," and "Family comes first," and "She thinks she's better than everyone now." I read them until my eyes burned. Then I blocked her. Priya says we're covered legally. But emotionally, it feels like I'm standing in the middle of a room where everyone is shouting, and I'm the only one who can hear the truth. The award gala I mentioned at the beginning where my mom tried to take the microphone was last weekend. That was the first time I'd seen most of my family in one room since the cease and desist, and it confirmed what I was afraid of. They weren't coming to celebrate me. They were coming to reassert control of the story. Which brings us back to that stage. Because after I took the microphone from my mother, the room was silent, and my hands were shaking, and I had to decide in real time whether I was going to let her rewrite my life in front of an audience, or finally say what I'd been swallowing for years. So here's what happened next. I looked at the crowd, hundreds of faces, some familiar, most not, and I could feel sweat cooling at the back of my neck under the stage lights. My mother stood beside me, smile frozen, eyes sharp. The host was hovering off to the side like he wanted to disappear. I lifted the microphone. My voice came out steadier than I felt.
"Hi," I said.
A few people laughed nervously because they could tell something was off but didn't know what. "Thank you for this award.
"I'm genuinely honored."
My mother tried to take a half step forward again, like she wanted to keep performing. I angled my body slightly so she couldn't. "I just need to clarify something," I continued, and my throat tightened around the words. Portion and company started in a rented kitchen with one car and a lot of debt. There wasn't family support at the beginning. There was a lot of doubt. The room shifted. You could feel it, the way attention sharpens when you're not just doing the expected gratitude script. My mother's face went pale under the makeup. She leaned in and whispered, "Stop." I kept going anyway because once the first sentence was out, the dam was already cracking. "I don't say that to shame anyone," I said, and I meant it weirdly. "I say it because I'm proud of what I built, and I'm proud of the people who actually built it with me. My team." I gestured toward Lean, who was sitting at a table near the front, looking like she wanted to stand up and fight someone if necessary. "There's this idea that success just happens," I said, feeling my hands stop shaking as adrenaline turned into focus. "But it doesn't. It's mornings and mistakes and starting over. It's learning to trust yourself when people you love don't." You could have heard a fork hit a plate. I didn't mention the sandicist. I didn't mention Sam. I didn't have to. My mother's expression was loud enough. I ended it simply. "Thank you to everyone who supported me when I didn't have proof yet. That's real support. That's what I'm celebrating." Then I handed the microphone back to the host with a polite smile and stepped away. My mother didn't follow me off stage. She stayed there for half a second too long, like she couldn't decide whether to chase me or protect her image. Then she clapped sharp, stiff claps. Like applause could erase what I'd said. After the gala, the fallout was immediate. My mother cornered me near the coat check, nails digging into my arm through the fabric of my dress. "You humiliated me," she hissed. I looked at her hand on my arm and gently removed it. "You try to take credit," I said. "I was being proud of you," she snapped. "No," I said, and my voice surprised me again, quiet, solid. "You were being proud of yourself." My father appeared, face tight, and said, "We're leaving." Sam wasn't there. Apparently he refused to come because he was too angry, which is rich considering he tried to hijack my suppliers, but my Aunt Nero was, and she watched from a distance like she was collecting gossip. I went back to my table. Lean handed me a glass of water, without a word. Sonia. Yes, the same Sonia from the last story, because in my head she exists in every universe as the friend who doesn't let you collapse. Leaned in and whispered, "That was the cleanest boundary I've ever seen." I thought I would feel triumphant. Instead, I felt tired. Like I'd been holding a heavy box for years and finally set it down, and now my arms were shaking from the absence of weight. The next day, my father texted, "You owe your mother an apology." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied, "No, I owe myself peace." He didn't respond. 2 days later, Priya called and said Sam's email stopped. The suppliers confirmed he'd gone quiet. The clinics confirmed they'd blocked him. Legally, we were safe. Practically, we tightened systems. Emotionally, it still felt like a bruise that kept getting pressed. Then something happened that I didn't expect at all. One of my cousins, Hannah, who I hadn't talked to much because she's quieter, messaged me privately. "I heard what you said," she wrote. "Thank you. They've been doing the same thing to me in smaller ways. I'm proud of you." I stared at that message until my eyes blurred. A week after that, my mother showed up at my office again. Not with Sam. Alone. She waited in the lobby like a customer, sitting with her purse clutched tightly in her lap. When I walked out, she stood immediately. Her eyes looked tired in a way I almost didn't recognize. I just want to talk, she said. I didn't invite her into the office. We went to the cafe next door instead, public, neutral. She ordered tea and didn't drink it. Her fingers kept adjusting the spoon like she needed something to do with her hands. I didn't realize you felt that way, she said finally. I watched her face.
How?
I asked. Not loud, just honest. How did you not realize? She swallowed.
We worried, she said.
We didn't want you to fail.
So you laughed, I said.
Her eyes flicked down. We thought it would scare you back into safety, she admitted, and hearing her say it that plainly made something in my chest twist. That's not love, I said quietly. That's control. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Then, after a long silence, she said, Your father doesn't like being wrong. I know, I said. And Sam, she sighed, and for the first time I heard something close to shame in her voice. Sam has always been.
Some.
I almost laughed, but it came out as a breath. He impersonated me, I said. He tried to profit off my work. My mother's eyes glassed over. I know, she whispered. That was the closest she came to admitting it was wrong. Why did you try to take the microphone? I asked. Her face tightened again, defensive reflex. Then it softened, just slightly. Because when people praise you, she said, it feels like they're judging us too. And I wanted them to see we're a good family.
Isterta her.
By lying. She didn't answer. I didn't get the apology I wanted. Not the clean, direct, we were wrong. But I got something new. A crack in the armor. A moment of honesty. Not enough to undo years, but enough to confirm I wasn't imagining things. When we stood to leave, she reached for my hand like she used to when I was a kid crossing streets. I stepped back gently. Her face fell, and I hated that I felt guilty, but I didn't move. I'm not cutting you off, I said. But things are different now. You don't get to rewrite my story. You don't get to insert Sam into my company. You don't get to demand access because you're my parents. She nodded slowly, tears slipping down. Okay, she whispered, like the word weighed 100 pounds. I walked back to my office, and the lobby smelled like coffee and printer paper and ordinary life. Lean looked up as I came in and raised her eyebrows in a silent question. It's handled, I said. She nodded once. Good. And that's the ending, I guess. Not a dramatic courtroom scene. Not a perfect reconciliation. Just me, finally acting like the owner of my own life. The strangest part is this. I built an empire that made them take notice, and it didn't fix my family the way a small, hopeful part of me thought it might. It didn't make them kinder. It didn't magically turn mockery into support. It just made their motives visible. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. But it did give me something else. Proof. Not for them. For me. Okay, here's my entertaining but honest breakdown of everyone in this mess, because if I don't laugh a little, I'll just grind my teeth into dust. Sam is a walking LinkedIn headline with none of the substance. He's the type who thinks saying scale and synergy 3 times summons a business into existence like a demon ritual. The audacity to impersonate me and sign emails as business development when his biggest development is moving from the couch to the fridge is genuinely impressive in the worst way. If consequences were a person, they'd be knocking politely on his forehead right now. My father is the classic don't challenge me patriarch who mistakes control for wisdom. He laughed at me because it protected his ego. If I failed, he could say, I told you so. And if I succeeded, he could still pretend it was somehow part of his plan. The text demanding I apologize to my mother? That's not leadership. That's damage control. He doesn't want truth. He wants quiet. My mother is trickier because she's not a cartoon villain. She's the kind of person who loves you, but only in the shape she can hold. She wasn't proud of my business until it could be used as evidence that she's a good mother. That microphone grab at the gala wasn't love, it was branding. She wanted the audience to clap for her parenting, not for my work. And honestly, that's heartbreaking because it means she sees my success as a reflection, not a person. Aunt Nura is just noise. She's the family megaphone that turns every private moment into a public morality play. People like her don't actually care about family values. They care about being relevant. Lean deserves her own award, not for being loyal. Loyalty is easy when it's convenient, but for being competent, direct, and protective without being controlling. She did what my family refused to do: respect the work. She treated my business like it mattered from day one. That's real support. And me? I'm not changed by money. I'm changed by clarity. I stopped auditioning for love. I stopped letting people rewrite my story because they don't like how it makes them look. If building an empire did anything, it taught me that some people only clap when they think they can stand in the photo with you. And the best upgrade isn't the bigger office or the contracts. It's learning to step out of that frame and keep walking anyway.